All right, so welcome back. We're going to start off this podcast with an apology. That seems to be a pattern for us a lot of the time, where we have to
it's usually an apology from you. This one just happens to be one you have to state.
Yes, I'm giving an apology for my co-host because she can't seem to get it down.
For anything. This isn't a specific thing to any person.
So she owes an apology to Stork from
last week,
where she mentioned that he runs a Star Wars podcast when she in fact meant a Star Trek podcast. She does in fact know the difference. She just gets in her own head and she says the one that she's trying to avoid saying.
Didn't we do this in the theater for this movie?
In the theater, you screwed it up, and
it was a theme song, right?
Yeah.
It was like a theme song, and you were like, which one is it? And I'm not saying it because I'm going to say the wrong one. You're like, okay, so say the one you weren't going to say, and then I said the right one.
Yeah. So I told her to just George Costanza it from now on, and just basically do the opposite of what you're thinking, and you're always right.
Right.
So...
And I did prove to you, Stork, that it's not just you. The text message I sent to you on Twitter was my sister. And the funny part about that whole situation was I wasn't even the one that saw the TikTok that I was referring to in the text message. Tyler did. And he's told me what it was. And I still said it wrong. Yeah. So, anyways.
She does this constantly.
I hope this makes you feel better. And if you guys have not checked out his Star Trek podcast, which I almost just said Star Wars. I'm not even going to lie. Please do check it out. It is good, and I have listened to it. It's just, I probably will call it a Star Wars podcast some other time in my life. It's going to happen.
All right. Anyway, I'm Tyler.
I'm Shay.
And this is Cinematically Correct. This week is my choice, of course.
Yeah, so buckle up, buttercups.
We did 1917.
Which was the current movie for
February. Which is the current movie for February. Not at all related to Valentine's Day or any kind of romantic thing. Just, I really wanted to see it so selfishly.
It's your romantic love for war movies.
There we go.
You're welcome.
So, start off with a beer?
Of course. We got to start off with a beer.
So, this week...
This 6-pack beer that in all total cost me $40.
Well, whose fault is that? It's 100% your fault. So, this is Two Brothers Artisan Brewing. The name of the beer is Domaine du Page, which sounds French. So, it's also related to World War I. Yeah.
So in fairness, guys, we're in our busy season, both of us. He works in kind of stock market type stuff, which tax season makes it busier. And then I'm in medical auditing, which is this season. So we're very, very busy. So I didn't even get a chance to read what this beer was. I basically went by title alone because I had to go quickly.
I mean... Out of sheer coincidence, you killed it because it's two brothers, and there's two brothers in this...
I went by title.
It's got a French name, and they were fighting World War I in France. And it's a French country ale. So they were on the French farmhouse.
Well, I'm so glad I killed it. I have no idea what it's going to taste like, so good luck.
So we'll see. I think I'll give this a 3.8, 3.9.
It looks really dark for your liking.
Yes, but it says it has a caramely flavor.
Which could go either way.
Yeah.
He's also struggling hard to open it. It's a glass bottle, just FYI.
It's a glass hand-sealed bottle.
Yeah.
Or personally sealed bottle, it looks like. It's actually really good.
Oh, look at that. My smells good. My shot in the dark was actually successful.
Well, it's got a nice... substance to it, so it's not like a watery type beer, so you know you're drinking a beer, and it's got a nice like caramelly malty profile.
Good.
Yeah, I like that. I'll give it a solid 4.
A 4?
4 out of 5.
Wow.
I know.
That's better than when I try.
Generally, yes. Well, to be fair, when you try, you do try to screw me over a lot of the time.
Sometimes. So... But anyway, I'm glad that you like it, and you have a 6-pack of it, so...
I do.
I guess enjoy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So, this is a current movie, so we have to go over the trailers.
Which there were only 3, because we went to a crappy theater again. We need to, where's the theaters with all the trailers? We need to go find them.
The one in Framingham has a lot of trailers.
All right, is that where we're going next?
I guess.
All right, I'm in.
So, the first one was Call of the Wild. Jack London. It almost looked like a Disney movie with Harrison Ford and a CGI dog.
Yeah, but I wrote down, I'm in for this movie as long as the dog doesn't die. And your response to that was, I'm not telling you. So I'm not sure I'm willing to watch this movie.
Well, you should know. You have to read the book.
I've never read the book.
It's a very short book. It's a few hundred pages. It's a day read.
I don't know that I want to read the book if there's a chance that the dog dies. I have a problem with animal death. Yeah.
So, of the two Jack London books that are well known, White Fang and Call of the Wild, I personally prefer White Fang, the book, but I'm very down for this movie. It's got the whole Alaskan wilderness, gold rush, turn of the century vibe. Totally a historical movie, so right up my alley.
Shocker.
And it's got a heartfelt story about a dog and a guy.
Heartfelt?
Like it's just it's
heartbreaking?
No, heartfelt.
Okay. All right.
I wouldn't call it heartbreaking. I mean, there are sad parts of the story, but we're not going to get into it. All right. The next one was Emma. Yep. Which I didn't really have any interest in seeing. So I did Jane Austen as my capstone course for my English major, right? And this was one of the books that I had to read. It's fine. It's one of Jane Austen's better books. I'm not a big Jane Austen fan. I'm not really into that type of that would make two of
literature.
Us.
But The Girl from Thoroughbreds was in this, which did kind of intrigue me a little bit.
Also, the aging pop star from Love Actually.
Truth.
How dare you?
Truth. So, I mean, in two book movies right before this, right before the 1917, which is kind of strange. I mean, I guess 1917 kind of is a book movie as well, but
it's story trailers back to back.
Yeah. So, but I don't think we'll be covering that on the podcast unless you guys torture us in some way and make us.
Even then, I'm still not going to do it. I'm going to conscientiously object to that movie.
Okay. So, accurate for the movie we're doing. But the third trailer, guys, we will be doing this movie if it kills me. We will.
You are so excited for this trailer.
I'm so in for this. So this third trailer is The Invisible Man. I know we've talked about it before because I know I've seen this trailer. I wrote I need to see this the second time seeing this trailer, and I must watch it. And I have a lot of capitals going on here. Just so you guys know, it comes out on February 28th because I looked it up because I'm crazy. And I have March's movies, so it may or may not already be on the calendar. It's possible. It's just...
And by may or may not, she means it's definitely already on the calendar and there's no changing it under any circumstances because she will straight cut you to get to this movie.
Basically, yeah. So if you guys don't know what it's basically about a girl who, I think it's her husband, has... I'm going to put this in air quotes, has passed away because we don't actually know exactly what happened, but he has died according to everybody else, but she believes that he has found a way to continue to stalk her invisibly. Yeah. So we don't really know how or why or anything like that, but it looks creepy. She says he's a narcissistic abuser. Everything about this calls to me, I must see. So, anyway, down for it.
All right. To the movie then.
On to the movie.
So...
Brief synopsis.
Brief synopsis for 1917.
Brief synopsis.
The story is about two World War I British soldiers that are called in to carry and be couriers for a message to a different part of the front to call off an attack because the attack is a trap. So the story is all about one of the two people having a brother that is about to die in the trap, and the story follows them through all of the difficulties and ordeals to get to the final destination.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. So I'll go through a few of the people. I'm sure that I should probably go through more. So this movie is very much based on two characters.
Yes.
But then there's ancillary characters, and the only reason I'm even going to mention any of the ancillary characters is because they're famous.
Well, they're the bigger known actors in this movie, and they're the supporting actors. Yes. And the two main characters are kind of not really well known.
Right.
One of them is more well known than the other, but they're both kind of background actors up to this point in their career.
Right. So, Dean Charles Chapman plays Lance Corporal Blake. He is the one who has a brother.
Yes.
And I don't know him from anything at all. I do know that he's in Game of Thrones because almost everybody in this movie is in Game of Thrones. But other than that, I'm trying to see if he's in anything I've seen, but no.
I mean, I don't remember him from anything other than Game of Thrones. So, and I didn't even recognize him from Game of Thrones, honestly, because he looks way different. This character is one of the brothers that is in this movie, and he really is one of the soldiers that has not really lost their innocence in the war. So he very much idealizes the heroism and getting medals and doing all of these things for recognition, but he hasn't really come to terms with this is an awful thing. This is a horrible war. People are dying for basically no reason.
Right.
And committing atrocities.
Right. I would agree with that.
Next character is...
George McKay plays Lance Corporal Schofield.
Yes.
So he is Corporal Blake's friend and the person that Corporal Blake picks to go with him on this mission to deliver the message to his brother. I don't know George McKay from anything. However, I did see that he is in 11/22/63, which, if you remember at all, is the Stephen King book that I purchased for you on Christmas time, and also the miniseries that I am in love with that I never finished watching because I wanted you to watch it with me after you read the book. But
I haven't read the book, and it's been...
I've never read the book. I just started the miniseries, and I was like, you would love this. I stopped watching it, and now I would like to finish it.
We'll add it back into the list. The book is like every other Stephen King novel.
So we can watch the miniseries first, and then you can read the book like I was planning on doing.
It's a 1,000-page book or something stupid.
So good. But anyways, he's in it, and I really, really want to finish watching. If you guys have seen 11/22/63, the miniseries, I can't remember the guy's name who's in it, but it's really good.
Isn't it James Franco?
Yes, James Franco. Let me know if you guys have seen it and if it's worth finishing out and making Tyler watch. Anyway, he plays a kind of more hardened soldier, I would say. He kind of does understand the difficulties, and he's kind of trying to reason with him and be like, hey, you're going and walking into likely a trap. Like, this isn't, don't just trot out there. Like, you got to be careful. You got to be smart about it. If you're not smart about it, no one warns your brother. Yeah.
It's very much the opposite side of the coin. So it's the new recruit, hasn't really gone into battle, with the seasoned veteran that is just like, I just want to not die a horrible death. Whatever I have to do, however I have to go about doing that, as long as I get the job done and don't die, it's a win. Right. And he doesn't care about the heroism. He traded in one of his medals
because he was thirsty
for a bottle of wine, just because he was thirsty, and he's got more a real sense of reality in war. Yeah. For this, for all war, really. Right.
So it's like me versus you. You know.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Anyway, so then the rest of the people are really ancillary, and I don't really think we need to say who they are, but Colin Firth plays General Erin. He's literally in one scene, and you don't even see him. It's so dark in there. Yeah. Like, it's like, it's him because of his voice, but that's it. The most recent Colin Firth movie we've done is Love Actually. Yes. For sure. You guys all know who that is, right? So, like, I don't have to, like, say more about him.
He's the author from Love Actually. You have to know who Colin Firth is. There are a couple other characters in there. There's Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, so I was going to talk about my favorite one, but fine, we'll do Benedict Cumberbatch first. Benedict Cumberbatch is obviously Sherlock. I mean, right, guys?
And he's also in who doesn't know who Benedict Cumberbatch is, really?
I don't know, but he just plays the person who's getting the message.
Yes, he's the commander that is walking into a trap at the end of the movie.
Right. But, speaking of Benedict Cumberbatch, Andrew Scott, which we have spoken about, if you guys remember, back on our Saving Private Ryan podcast, we talked about Andrew Scott. So if you guys haven't listened to that podcast, that was back when we were podcast babies. Yes. But we had a whole debate about it, about who he looked like and how he looked like the guy from Friends, Phoebe's brother,
Giovanni Ribisi.
Yeah, so we had a whole debate about it. It was like the first internet debate we were in. Yep. It was great times. But anyways,
that's like podcast number 2 or something crazy.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. But he's my favorite villain of all time. Yep. Moriarty. And I was so excited to see him in this movie. Like, I was kind of like, ugh, I have to watch another war movie because Tyler's making me. But then I saw him and I perked right up.
He's only in this movie for like 2 minutes.
And his character's great. He's like, dude, you're basically going to die, but if you want to die, go ahead. Like,
he's the final form of the soldier that has lost all faith in anything, and he's just a sarcastic asshole. Yeah.
Like,
really,
when you're dying, can you just throw that back to us so, like, we can have it back? Thanks.
Yeah. Like, it's the final, well, we're all going to die. I've accepted that we're all going to die horribly, so nothing matters anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
He's basically my life force. So, anyway, really happy to see him in this movie. And it's like a Sherlock reunion, so it's kind of adorable.
Well, there was one last person.
You're going to talk about the brother?
The
because
brother.
he's from Game of Thrones?
Richard Madden.
I knew you were going to do that.
Robb Stark. King in the North. At the end. He's actually a very good actor. And I've seen him in a couple things other than Game of Thrones, but that's all I can ever see him in forever now. I recognized him instantly versus not recognizing the other person from Game of Thrones because he looked dramatically different. He looks the same.
And they're brothers in this, and
Yeah.
they're both from Game of Thrones. So just wanted to put that out there.
They're enemies in Game of Thrones, actually.
I didn't
They're
say
rivals.
that they were brothers in the Game of Thrones, that they were
No.
both in it.
Yeah. He plays the commander that is there with his troops, and he just leads by example. And that's the type of person that you want near you. At the end, he's in this movie for a few minutes, but you just get the sense that he's the kind of person that inspires confidence and loyalty and all the best things in the world. So, I mean, yeah, those are really all the characters.
There's a lot of characters, but those are the ones that are important. Anyway, so we ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things that Twitter, specifically, well, a bunch of people actually, but Ryan Terry, Keith, I think their Twitter handle is like Crazy Keith Rules, who used to be one of our OG fans. I don't know if you remember him, but like
yes.
long time ago. Anyway, they both talked about the one-shot cinematography, and I put that in air quotes, that this movie was rumored to have.
Right.
Now, I will say, a lot of you guys, I guess, knew about this prior to watching the film, and I never heard of that, but I mean, I also I try really hard not to research too much into films before I see them, because I don't want to have, like, expectations, and I don't want to, like, jade how I'm, like, looking at things. I don't even generally watch trailers. The only reason I saw this trailer is because it was in one of the previous movies we did.
Yeah. Well, I've been watching this trailer since I heard about the trailer.
You are a trailer person. I don't like to get too much into things before I've seen them.
I mean, I have to add Midway to the list of war movies because I haven't seen it. And
amazing.
It's supposed to be fantastic, and all of the visuals and effects are supposed to be outstanding. Okay,
that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Let's bring it back.
Okay,
anyway, so did you know that there was supposed to be, quote, quote, one-shot cinematography?
Not before doing the research after watching the movie, and after doing that and looking back and trying to remember what happened in the movie, it does track as a single frame shot for a lot of the movie.
Yes. And just to note while we're talking about it, the name of the cinematographer is Roger Deacon.
Yes.
He apparently already has won an award for his cinematography. And he'll probably win another one for this.
It was fantastic. It's straight out of having all the cuts to change the reels in Alfred Hitchcock movies and playing with the camera to get the desired effect and convey the story a certain way. So I feel like the one-shot approach to this really lent itself to the story because it's more of a journey, and if you're following along on a set journey, it adds a more personal touch, I feel.
Okay. So, are you interested in why people may not like it?
Sure.
So, there are talk out there that apparently this one-shot thing was very well known prior to seeing the film. Mm-hmm. And because of that, people went into this with the awareness that it was going to be a one-shot thing, and they couldn't focus on what was happening in the film because they kept thinking about how large the set must be and how hard it must be to get those tracking shots and, like, watching, trying to see if they could see any cuts or breaks or problems. And they said that they spent so much time being aware of, like, all of that they weren't able to focus on what they were trying to be immersed in.
I mean, that just, to me, makes the case that not knowing information before you watch it gives you a better experience, because then you can be pleasantly surprised by things, and you experience it as the director and as the people that created the movie intended, without any kind of bias or preconceived ideas. Right.
I have to say that I do feel that if I had known ahead of time, and like I was going into this watching the movie to see this wonderful feat of one shot like movie, I would have probably been distracted. Like, because I know, like, for example, I don't know if you've seen it, but the Citizens Kane opening scene is very, like, one of the longest one takes or something like that. I remember when I had to see it for a film class, we were watching it for that reason. I have no idea what happened in that. I don't know anything about what happened. All I know is that we watched it to watch the camera work.
Right. There's another World War I movie by Stanley Kubrick, I can't remember the title, that had a award-winning long single shot in the trenches. And
that actually helped inspire some of this movie.
It did help inspire some of this movie. The director actually rewatched it in preparation, and then he was struck by how short that scene actually is, so he did the entire movie that way. Now,
I don't know the exact amount of time, but the longest take in this film was approximately 8 minutes. It's 8 minutes and something seconds. I didn't write down the seconds, but just so you guys know, the longest take is approximately 8 minutes.
Right, so it's not actually a single shot like some people may think it is. It's multiple different takes, multiple different shots, all spliced together seamlessly, which must have been a nightmare to have to hit the spots for each time so there's no weird jump cuts or weird discrepancies in the shot.
Only cut that I can really think of that like is obviously a cut would be when it went from day to night within a scene.
Well, he lost consciousness and they had to show a lapse of time in that shot, so I guess that makes sense, but that was a stark difference. And then it led to one of my favorite scenes in the movie where he's running through the rubble city to the flares while getting shot at, and it was just such a stark visual, that black and orange kind of, he's in hell, actually he's in hell.
Is that where he goes basically past the river of Styx?
It's
right in that time
when he falls into the river and then he gets washed away after he gets chased by the drunk soldier that he should have shot in the first place. Not really the point, because how do you not shoot or kill a drunk soldier? But yes, he jumps in the river and goes down the river Styx, which was kind of opposite getting out of hell on the river Styx. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was the only real break in the movie. Yeah, everything else was basically seamless and spliced.
Okay, are you good with the one shot?
I really liked it. It, to me, had images of other war movies that tell a journey story where it's not just this is a battle. It's almost like you're following along with them, and you're almost part of the group.
Right.
So, I very much liked it, and it totally got me to immerse myself in the movie.
So I guess what he's saying is, and if you guys know of more long one-shot movies, I know this is like a record-breaking one, but if you know of others, send them our way, because apparently Tyler's a fan.
I thoroughly enjoy it, yeah. No, I totally do.
Okay, so the script in this film is, I guess you could say, light. This movie really relies on its visuals, its score, the one-shot cinematography, like all of that to tell the story. And there isn't a lot of dialogue. There isn't a lot of narration. So a lot of people had some complaints about that because there's not a lot of narration. So I was curious how you felt about that and if you felt that it added or took away from the story.
Personally, I felt the minimal script added to the story because it added a level of realism. You're not going to be talking exposition as you're walking through the woods trying not to get shot.
Right.
You're not, oh, by the way, Bob, my family is really going to miss me if I die, blah, 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 blah. But that would have taken me out of the story, and just, it's not realistic. So the quiet tones of this, where it's more about the shot itself and the scenery and the context of the shot, to me, added to this movie rather than taking away from the movie. How did you feel?
I mean, so I'm somebody who I get bored fast. And
Understatement of the century.
Yes, and I don't like anything that is slow. However, that being said, I did not find this movie slow or something that didn't keep my interest, which is surprising to me because I'm reading a lot of the comments and their reasoning was there wasn't narration to pull them in. There wasn't like a lot of getting into the characters. Like you don't really get to like really know their backgrounds or any of that, which is all things that generally pull me to a movie. That's generally what I like. But in this movie, I felt myself really kind of like almost on the journey with them. Like, I felt like I was doing all those things with them, and I was focused on what was happening almost around me. Like, it was like, I can't be talking. I need to be looking for the tripwire, and I can't be dealing with your stories. I need to be, making sure there's no gunshots and things. So, which is different for me. That's not how I normally react. But it could have been because we were in the theaters, so everything was very loud.
You have to be listening for the clock so he knows what time it is after he blacks out. Right.
And that's not generally how I watch a movie. I have too many things going on in my mind. That doesn't normally happen. So for that to have happened for me, that's like impressive. And I give like major props to the film people for that.
I honestly think that's related to the fact that this is a very simple plot. All things considered, it's a very mission-oriented point A to point B because people are going to die type thing. There's no real deeper background that is required. There's no, we need to know about this battle or this thing.
Right.
None of that really matters to the context of this movie. It's just, you have to go from here to there, otherwise a bunch of people will die. This is your mission, should you choose to accept it. Mission Impossible style.
Yeah.
Go.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when we get into the other war movies, I'll say why I do think that is important too, because I do find that piece of it very important for being able to immerse somebody who is not a history buff, as
right.
Anyway, another thing so we have to talk about the central part of this movie, like what they did and the decision making that had to go into that, and like the angst and emotions that had to go into that. Because we don't really talk about it. So there's only really one main thing that happens in this movie. The general tells the two boys that they are going to have to deliver a message to another troop that they cannot advance because it's a trap. The Germans have set up a trap, making them think that they are rescinding when they're not. And basically they have to go and do this, and they have to go tell them.
Well, they've retreated from their front lines. They've set up new defensive positions, and it's going to be an ambush.
Right. So what they're told when they're going to do this is, well, don't worry, where you have to cross, they've already left. Which my thought is, but if the Germans set a trap to this other troop, pretending that they've gone, why should I believe that they've gone in this spot that you're sending me through? Which, that was my first thought. But anyway, my question to you was from both perspectives. So for the first perspective is, if your brother was on the other troop and you needed to warn him or he was going to die, or warn his general or whatever that he was going to die, how would you feel, and like, would you have reacted the same way as the kid in this movie?
I mean, if my brother was walking into a trap like that and we're both surviving war, there is not a thing that is going to stop me from getting there or die trying. I have two brothers. I am going to walk through fire to get there. If that's what it takes, whatever it takes, I'm going to get there. If I lose a leg, lose an arm, I get there. It doesn't matter. That's just what you do for family. Like, right. That's...
Would you do it the way he did it, though?
No, I'd have shot the German pilot. I'm not taking any chances. No, he gets shot. I might not have even saved him from the burning plane. No, to hell with that. War is hell.
Okay.
So
for me, I'm looking at the perspective of my sister. So I have a younger sister. So I just think of if she was in the other troop and I had to go help her, I feel like I would have been the opposite of him. I would have been like the friend. I would have been like, okay, so I have to get there. If I don't get there, she dies. So I have to make sure that I am careful, that I'm calculated, that everything is done in a way that I make sure I have the highest chance of success. Where I felt like he was kind of like, I'm just gonna fucking go. I'm gonna go. Like, I'm gonna get there. I don't care. I don't care what I have to go through. I don't care if I get shot at. I don't care. I'm going. But me, I feel like I would have been like, nah, I have to be hidden. I can't be shot at, because if I get hurt or it slows me down, then I can't get to her. Or if I get killed, God forbid, like, and I can't trust that somebody else is gonna get to her. Like, I have to get to her.
Right.
So, like, that part kind of surprised me.
Well, I just think that goes almost without saying. I mean, he's in a blind panic at the start of this movie, but I think I would be that same way, but also the grim determination of, I'm not stopping, I'm straight terminating this. I'm going to be the Terminator, which Energizer Bunny, not going to stop. go smart about it, but just keep pushing until I get there.
Just keep swimming?
Yeah, just keep swimming.
Yeah.
I would have gotten there before the first wave had gone. I don't care how I have to get there, but I'm getting there.
Well, I think the pushing through when it wasn't the smartest way to push through might have been part of it. But anyway, what about from the friend's perspective? So this friend really didn't have a connection to the troop in any way other than that his friend's brother was in it.
Well, no, but there is that sense of brotherhood and camaraderie.
And 1,600 other soldiers?
Of, those are my comrades in arms. Those are the people that are fighting and dying, and they're still my brothers. They're not my brothers, but they're my brothers in arms. They're my family, my adopted family. We would kill for them. We would die for them. That is very much a thing. So I still 100% understand that aspect of it.
Do you understand why he was complaining about being on the mission?
Oh, hell no. Like, why me? Like, what the hell? Also, he did take a sweet-ass time at a couple points in this movie and sing lullabies and just sit down and listen to a song randomly. Like, those are nice scenes in the movie, but at the same time, get a sense of urgency, man. For the love of God, people are going to die.
I mean, yeah, but I also think you can understand from the perspective of someone who isn't sure if the next step they take, they're going to die, that they might want to stop for a second and enjoy a moment, you know?
Can we talk about the biggest plot hole or problem with this movie altogether?
Of course.
So the whole process entails getting two guys from point A to point B.
Yep.
They have planes. We saw planes in this movie.
I thought they were tracking them. I thought there was going to be some big reveal, but there wasn't, so...
Or just have someone fly a message and drop it to the people. Be like, by the way, y'all, no?
Well, and he did get on a car at one point. I think it was, I want to say French? I don't know.
Well, they were British soldiers, but they were in France.
Yeah, well, no, but there was multiple different soldiers. They had all different accents.
Well, it was a coalition. There was... England was fighting World War One, so was France, Belgium.
There was an Irish person on there.
Ireland, well, that's part of the British Empire. The India, Ireland, all of the British territories, France, Belgium, all of them were fighting against the Germans and the Austrians.
Okay, the point of this was not to name all of the people that were in the car. The point of it was to say that he got on a car, and then conveniently the car could not take him to where they were going. And I was just kind of like...
Well, the bridge was out.
I know, but like, that was convenient. Like,
well, it's the same thing. It's the whole Lord of the Rings problem where they're walking to Mordor, but they have the eagles that fly them back. Right. Why couldn't I go there? Why couldn't I just hop on one, get there, drop it?
This sounds insensitive, but helicopters are not known to be the safest of methods.
It's not a helicopter, it's a plane.
They looked like helicopters. They were really, really low.
They were biplanes.
Oh, they looked like helicopters.
They were the first iteration
I wrote helicopter down.
They were the first iterations of planes, really, in war.
Gotcha.
So they were the two-winged wood and paper mache, basically, held together with chewing gum and a prayer. Not really reliable. But you could still...
so also probably not super safe. So, like, if you're the only man who can do the job, maybe...
Redundancies here. That's all I'm saying. They could have gotten a plane there and sent two guys. Just saying.
Okay. Well.
Smoke signals or some other way to get the message. There has to be a failsafe other than just two guys.
Oh, I did also want to ask a question before we move on.
Yeah.
Flares. Why did they send up the flares? I'm sure you know this because you know about war. When they got out of that cave and then kept walking forward. I thought the point of the flares was to tell some people where you are, but they left the flare, so immediately.
Well, so the flare is a signal, and it was to show that they are in the German lines and there's no one there. So if you wanted to, you could advance to that point, dig yourself in, and you've gained however much territory, and you can set up your own defensive line there. So my thought was they were saying, oh, they're actually gone. Move up, guys.
Did they have a conversation with somebody to tell them they were saying that?
No.
Because I looked at it when they sent up the flare. So for those of you who haven't seen the movie, They had just gone through, the friend had been almost buried alive because a rat had hit a tripwire. And they just got out of the cave that had been, the bunker that had been caved in. And he was not injured, but he was not doing great. Like, I mean, he'd just been buried with rocks and had to be unburied. So I thought at that point that they were sending up the flare to have somebody come get him. And then they sent it up and they got up and walked away. And I'm like, wait, flares are to tell people where you are. Nobody knows where you are if you walk away.
They use them for that, but they also use it as a signal saying this is a position. So
I guess I just missed the conversation when they let people know that, rather than people might think like, hey, they need help, and then go and they'd be like, what? There's someone here. Are they
also
dead?
It's spiteful and petty because he asked for it back if you were dying. So they're probably saying, it's here, come get it.
Gotcha.
As a kind of screw you to Moriarty.
Okay, well, I mean, I just wanted to ask the question. So anyway, so that's really all I had on the particular movie. I did want to ask you about comparison to other war movies, but is there any other plot points you wanted to cover? I mean, we are going kind of long here, but...
We are going long, but that's standard for us at this point, really. No, I think that covers a lot of things. I have a lot to talk about in the History Minute.
Of course you do.
We'll
okay, so compared to other war movies, you kind of brought up this a little bit. So before I let you go on a tangent for 20 minutes, I did want to kind of mention what you had talked about. So you had said that you had kind of brought up the fact that this movie lends to people who don't know a lot about movies. At least you insinuated it. I don't know if you meant to, but you did. And you were saying that, like, it makes you feel immersed and you don't have to know what battle, what war, like, what particular thing this is. And I think about Saving Private Ryan and how I loved that movie, but there were a lot of moments where I had to say, like, hey, what does this mean? Or what was this? Or what was that? Because I don't know a lot. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people like that. They can't imagine that you guys all know every little detail of war. Like, it's just...
Well, so I was going to compare this movie to Saving Private Ryan because it has a very similar feel where it's very mission-oriented. Mm-hmm. You have to get from point A to point B to save a person, save a bunch of people. Very similar story. And I love both of those movies. I think that Saving Private Ryan had a lot more information to digest because it was so loaded with historical information and all of that, where this is more there are two trenches, you have to get from here to there, go. And the simplicity of the story eased the story along a little bit in places. So for those who are not familiar, and even for myself at times, where just, okay, they have to keep going. So I loved it comparing it to Saving Private Ryan. The other movie that I would compare it to is Dunkirk. And the reason I compare it to that is because Dunkirk is a very visual war movie where there's all of these really beautiful shots. There's not a whole lot of talking, but it's very panoramic and very beautiful, where you follow airplanes in the sky that are tracked and all of that, and just very great set piece scenes.
I mean, and the other war movie you have to compare it to would be Jarhead, since the director also did Jarhead. Right.
So the director did do Jarhead. I felt that this is a very different tone and a different personality.
Yes.
To Jarhead, where that one was more the ridiculousness of that particular conflict, whereas this one is a more ridiculous conflict, but it was seen as more important and had actual relevance to the world.
I agree with that.
So those are the movies that I would compare it to. It doesn't really fit with a lot of other war movies, like Apocalypse Now, Full Metal Jacket. They have a very different style.
Right, different feel.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, I mean, I'm not somebody who's super into war movies, but of the war movies, I mean, this one and Saving Private Ryan would definitely be on top of my list. I don't know which one I liked better. I mean, Saving Private Ryan had a lot of character development, which made me very connected to that, in actors that you just can't not like. But then this movie also had a lot of actors that you just can't not like. So,
yeah, we also have done another war movie for the podcast, Hacksaw Ridge, which has a very different feel as well, but still a great movie. I'm very much a war movie person. For those of you who don't know, spoilers.
Yeah,
that's kind of my life.
Yeah, so you'll see, if you keep listening to us, you'll definitely hear of more.
Yes.
Anyway, so I did want to mention that this movie is based on true stories told by Shawn Mendes's grandfather. He's the director of the movie. And the grandfather also wrote an autobiography with some of these stories in it. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out. But I wanted to make sure that we mentioned that it is based on true stories. It is not a true story. It is based on the fact that his grandfather was a messenger and would have to deliver messages like this. But this particular story was more of Shawn Mendes kind of imagining.
It's a creative license to tell a narrative that he wants to tell, inspired by the stories that he heard as a child.
Right. Yeah, so I just wanted to get that out there. So, do you want to do your history minute? Because I know you've been chomping at the bit over here.
Tyler's History Minute.
Okay, that's going to be brutal. All right.
All right, I'm going to settle in.
Strap in. There are so many. Well, one of them that I have to discuss because you made me is the fact that we've got an audience asks about STDs and war.
Yep, you're welcome.
Yeah. So that was a genuine thing. World War I, World War II, and all of the major conflicts in current day have had that huge issue where there were more soldiers sidelined with venereal diseases than trench foot in this war.
Jeez.
Which is having to sit in a soggy trench all day with no clean socks, which will happen to everyone if you sit in a puddle.
I would imagine.
The governments, America, the United Kingdom, they all had propaganda to try to educate their soldiers from not getting drunk and sleeping with prostitutes, or if they did, using protection. So they had educational things. They had propaganda posters going, the enemy wants you to have your dick fall off. Basically, that doesn't help anyone. Fight for your country. Don't sleep with prostitutes. They also provided for one of the first times ever in history to soldiers, they provided condoms and prophylactics to try to cut down on the instances. They actually made not reporting that you had one of these illnesses a court-martialable offense, so they would get rid of you if you didn't go get medical attention. And it was a tremendous problem. So in World War I, they lost 7 million person days of time off the front lines fighting, and 10,000 people were discharged.
Jeez.
The British had 400,000 cases and only 74,000 of trench foot. So it was a huge problem. All right, I've talked about that.
Thank you.
A couple more things. So this is a war fought in trenches.
Was it now?
Yes.
This whole movie all being in basically a trench didn't include
So the reason for that was the invention of the machine gun. The Maxim or the Vickers machine gun, which came about after Gatling had invented the crank machine gun, where someone was at a party and listened to Americans saying, if you want to make a pile of cash, invent something to enable the Europeans to cut their throats with greater facility. So if you can help the Europeans kill each other faster, you'll make an ungodly amount of money.
Lovely.
And it's ironic because the person who invented the machine gun actually had hoped that it would go to peacekeeping, because they would say, well, no one can win. It's going to be a nightmare. Everyone's going to just die. Don't fight the war in the first place. But that's not what happened.
Obviously not.
This is also a big pioneering moment for a lot of inventions in war. This has actually driven us as a society forward. A lot of huge inventions come from wartime because it necessitates you killing someone better. This is where we get poison gas, but we also get the gas mask.
Okay.
This is where the tank was invented, but that also led to the tractor, or like the track to not get stuck in mud.
Yeah.
A lot of farm implements and heavy machinery from there. And it also led to the Hitler stash.
You had to put that in there.
I did have to throw that in there. So Adolf Hitler served in World War I, and he had a huge handlebar mustache originally, but it wouldn't fit under the gas mask. So in order to not die, he had to cut it down to the Hitler stash.
I'm so glad that you added that in. That's really a detail we needed.
And then the Germans are the first ones to shoot first in the arms race of chemical warfare. So they launched the first chemical gas attack in history. on April 22nd, 1915.
Are you done?
I think that covers a lot of it. Did you have anything else you wanted to know about World War One? Because I got
No, there's going to be other World War One movies, I am sure. So
I have to save something.
There's actually a new war movie coming out this year with Tom Hanks in it. Just so you know.
Oh no, what movie is that?
I don't know the name.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to look at that now. That's my new goal for the day.
You're welcome.
All right, so where do we go from here?
All right, so we should do our audience ask.
Audience asks.
Now, I will say that obviously throughout this podcast, we have covered a few things that people have brought up. So if we did bring up your thing and we didn't mention you, I am sorry. I just wanted to make sure we got as much of what you guys wanted talked about. Anyway, so, the first one I wanted to bring up was the Contrarians. And, you know, the Contrarians, they love you guys. I always have. You know, we have this lovely rapport. But last week, we had a fight about Greece. And, you know, I still think I'm right.
Greece go. You just can't.
No, I still think I'm right. But anyways, they fought with me, particularly, because they felt that your
opinion was wrong.
My opinion was wrong about the whole Sandy changing for Danny wasn't a one-sided thing. He tried to change for her and whatever. There was a whole fight. If you guys missed it, it was on Twitter at Cinematically C. It was a whole thing. So I love you guys, and I don't want that fight to go down as, you know, you hating us. So I wanted to make sure I got your question on here. So it's a very simple question. Ready?
Okay. Yeah.
How did the milk not go bad?
Well, it was not pasteurized, and it was probably just done.
But he was carrying it in his flask, and he'd been carrying it for quite a while. We don't know how long, really.
Only a few hours, and non-pasteurized milk generally was...
Did you see him get it?
From the bucket.
Yeah, but it had been sitting there.
Probably.
Like, it was like stagnant. It was like would you take stagnant water? No, but you're going to take stagnant milk?
Well, we don't know how long it was sitting there. Maybe it was just...
Nobody was there. No one was around.
Maybe there was someone that just ran off because they saw two soldiers. I don't know. I mean, as long as it doesn't smell bad and doesn't taste bad and it's still good, why not? You got to drink something.
I mean, I guess, but I don't know. Anyway, okay, well, I thought the milk was probably bad. I literally had written down in my notes something about I don't think I would drink that because of the fact that it's in an open bucket from God knows who, and it just... The Germans had booby-trapped everything, like they could have put poison in it, or...
Let's hope not. He gave it to a baby.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, just saying. There's a lot of things that could have happened there. Anyways.
Okay, so...
So, I usually try to ask a question from a new person. I'm going to ask this question. I don't know if you're going to have an answer, because I just read this question, and yeah, here we are. But anyways... This is a new person. Their name is Chatterfly. And they said, saw it today, haunted by the crawl over bodies throughout, and especially out of the water to hear the sweet, far distant voice that let him in like a siren. How did they know that was the song to use?
I don't know. It was a very haunting, but very catchy and nice song.
Yeah.
It was an eerie, perfect balance there of... It's in English. You can hear that it's in English. You can't really hear what they're singing to start with. It's a very pretty kind of mellow song. It just worked. It
really did.
Fantastically done.
But it gave such a creepy vibe.
It was a very somber, very almost morbid kind of feel to that shot, especially climbing over dead bodies in a river.
A river of Styx.
Yeah, the river of Styx. That was the allegory in comparison to... It worked. It was this whole score, the whole soundtrack was well done. There's not a whole lot of talking, but there's a lot of great sound effects and a great lot of visuals to pair that with. That just was stunning.
I agree with that. I mean, I literally wrote in my notes, score is actually pretty decent, and we don't normally pick up on the score that much, which I'm a very musical person, but I don't generally pick up on it during movies. You are the opposite. You're tone deaf.
I'm tone deaf 100%, and I could honestly probably survive without any music in the world at all.
Right, but in this movie, it's hard to miss it.
Yeah.
It really does lend to that. In this particular song they're talking about, you're not going to miss it. Like, that's just, it's creepy. It gives you that weird, unsettled feeling almost, but it works. So, anyway, I think that's it for Audience Ask, unless you want another one.
No, I did have one other thing that I wanted to talk about, because we didn't talk about it at all in this movie, or in this podcast so far, is the scene where he's with the young woman and the baby.
Okay.
And that was just such a haunting moment, because that, to me, encapsulates a lot of the horrible things that go on in war that aren't really conveyed in a lot of war movies. It's more about the soldiers fighting, but it's not seeing the real life consequences to the people that are left behind.
Right. And I mean, it's so heartbreaking that this woman there's obviously a language barrier there, and she has to come face to face with a guy, and she has to decide instantly that she's going to trust him and that he's not going to hurt her and her baby.
Right.
And then she decides to help him with his wounds, and then he's like, "Oh, peace out." Like, it's just like the emotions that woman must have gone through in that period of time to be like, okay, I trust him enough to show him my baby, and like, okay, I trust him enough to take that milk, and then, oh, now he's gone. Like,
well, I mean, it does help that, I mean, you know which side is fighting which side.
You don't know if he came in and he dressed in other
garb
that's fair, and all of that.
I mean, I don't know. You can kind of trust, but at the same time, the people that you're fighting with are not all good people.
Right.
There are horrible people on both sides. In any conflict, there are people, Americans commit atrocities sometimes in war, and other sides as well. It's really uncomfortable. War is a terrible thing, and a lot of terrible things happen. So you don't know who you can trust, even if it is someone on your side.
I agree with that.
So, where do we want to go from here?
Do we want to move into the reviews so that we're going to be over an hour at this point? Like, this is you.
It's not 100% me.
Anyway, go to your reviews.
For reviews.
Reviews.
Rotten Tomatoes has it at 89.
Okay.
Audience score of 88%. I think a lot of that goes to the really great cinematography, the really great score. It is a very somber movie. I think it is very well done with the limited speaking, and it does a great job of building the urgency and the tension. So yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 9.
Okay.
Right in line there. Yeah, 9.
Yeah. I was going to give it an 8. I'm not a super war movie person, obviously. But I enjoyed this movie. It's something you can enjoy whether or not you like war movies or not. You can kind of get into the story. I do wish there was more character development. That's the one thing that kind of like holds me back a little bit. I didn't feel invested in anybody. I was really only invested in Moriarty because he's Moriarty. So other than that, like, I really, I don't know. There wasn't a lot of investment for me.
Right.
I wanted background of the two brothers so that when one of the brothers passed away, spoilers, I would have felt more. And really, it was more just like, okay,
right.
So now we have to move forward. Like that, that's the only thing for me.
But I think that's fair.
Other than that, I really liked it. And the cinematography was amazing. Like, if he doesn't win an award, I'm throwing a fit.
Yeah. Just spectacular. Thoroughly enjoyable. If you have not seen it, go see it. It is worth the price of admission. It's better than a lot of things that you go out and see right now. So, spend your money.
Yeah.
All right. Next week, what are we doing?
So next week is my choice,
yes.
But I'm picking a movie that you've been bugging me about for months.
Yeah, years now.
Yeah, so we're going to do Serendipity. It is actually our 2-year anniversary for this podcast, and I figured, we should do a movie that you really like and that you've been telling me I'm going to hate, because that's just like our MO, really. It's, I like it, you hate it, you love it, I hate it,
You always get the anniversary episode, which is so totally unfair.
Don't know how that happens.
I know how it happens. We alternate picks, and it falls on the same choice every year.
Huh. Maybe because I started the podcast. I don't know.
We started the podcast together. How dare you?
Just saying.
So Serendipity.
Yes, Serendipity. So we will be back next week with that. If you guys want to talk to us outside the podcast, I am at Cinematically C on Twitter. Tyler is Blame Tyler CC. You can email us, cinematicallycorrect@gmail.com. We have a website now, Cinematically Correct Podcast. You can subscribe on there to be notified when we post our timestamps and when we post the podcast. But other than that, we will be back next week with Serendipity. So thank you to Jake at Athos Music for our intro and outro music, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.